Hello, Eurovision fans. My name is Ewan. Joining me today is the lovely Angus, and we're here to talk about another internal selection this year. This time, it's Azerbaijan. So they, as said, they've just did an internal selection. So they picked the band Mamagama with "Run with You." So let's just let's jump straight into it. Angus, what are your thoughts on the song?
Pleasantly surprised. I'm not the biggest fan of what Azerbaijan has brought to the contest over its entire participation history. Although they have had a small upswing for me in recent years, and this definitely continues that. Um, yeah, it's a fun little like indie rock song basically, which is right up my alley. And as always, good to see a band just writing their own music basically.
Um, it's in my top 10, but I mean that's just like saying fork is found in kitchen. Um, so it's interesting that you're talking about the fact that in this recent uptick and with the fact that it's been written by themselves, because since 2023 onwards, they've been opting for the strategy of prioritizing Azerbaijani songwriters because part of that, every single one has been at least partly written by someone out with Azerbaijan, mostly Nordics. So this is the third year in a row that they've gone for an Azerbaijani writing team, and I think you can really tell that because it doesn't feel like indie rock songs that you get in other countries. You're getting the the ethnic like interludes into it, but it doesn't feel tokenistic and just like crammed into like, oh, let's add a little bit of the ethno. It actually feels like it's a natural part of it. And I think that's really testament to the fact that they actually have people from Azerbaijan writing the song. Because I really like it. It wasn't what I thought that Azerbaijan were going to do. I did think they were probably going to go after two non-qualifications for a big diva ballad or something like that. So the fact that they are going for something like this, um, yeah, I'm very happy with it. It's interesting to see how it will perform because it that semi-final is difficult. That semi-final is very difficult for them. Um, you can certainly make a case for basically every single song in that semi-final, but I don't think it's going to qualify unless the running order is really good. Angus, what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, it's just not likely to qualify, is it? I also quite like the song, as I said, and it is also quite high in my rankings to my own surprise. But it's just not the kind of song that I see getting a big televote. And even if we still had jury and televote, unless this had like a big staging moment, this was never going to. th- There is a way to get to the top 10 for the song in under any voting system, but as such, it would always have been an uphill struggle.
Because
That's
the
nothing
problem
against
when
the
you look at
song.
that, yeah, when you look at that semi-final, and this is not a loud song, the other songs in that semi-final that are not loud are Deslocado and Bird of Prey, which are both, well, Zifferblatt are rock, but Napa is, of course, it's a band. So how they're going to
Yeah,
manage to actually stand out, because let's face it, Ukraine is Ukraine. They're sailing through and just being the more notable one of that, probably to the detriment of Portugal and Azerbaijan. So
there's a lot
it's
of voting
possible.
overlap. If the song stands out positively thanks to running order and just those two songs you mentioned, or some other songs that might be getting some similar voting blocks activated, if they underperform relatively, then Azerbaijan could genuinely overperform and do better than expected. But it's yeah,
Because there's
but
only a few countries that were there. It's not a big semi-final. There's only a few songs that won't qualify. So there is that possibility of it. Sorry, you were going to say something?
yeah, it just they feel like something that finishes either seventh or 13th in the semi-final. Uh,
Mm.
that, like qualifies and people aren't in shock that it didn't qualify as the last place, but or like it is a fair distance of qualifying.
Yeah, I do kind of disagree with you with your point they made about if the juries were there. I feel if the juries were there, this is something that could end up just randomly coming fifth. Not because of Azerbaijan's previous being one of the countries who had some interesting jury history, but that's a different video entirely. Um, yeah, it just because the way because juries rank things in completely different to how televotes go. So I could have seen it getting a fair amount of points because you don't really need that many to actually qualify. Um, so just going back to how they've like gone about the selection, what are your thoughts on continuing with this, focusing on Azeri talent and still keeping a an internal selection?
I'm happy with it. I understand there are arguments to have a national final, but I do think obviously I'm a complete outsider to the Azeri music scene, except for what has been given to us at Eurovision and a few singers that have worked with other Eurovision singers. Um,
For
but
those
I
of you
think
unaware, Angus is the person in charge of our roundup. So Angus is responsible for receiving every single thing that Ilchin Dovlatov has ever collabed with it, of which there are hundreds of millions of ones that he's done so
it,
far.
it feels like there's like three a month. Uh, it's wild. That man is just in the studio. Um, but that's the thing. I do feel this is a good way of both nurturing domestic talent to a certain degree and showcasing the music and the culture in a way that is internationally accessible, which is a slightly different tack from how a lot of countries have done in Eurovision, where it's in a much more like, oh, it's an ethnic ballad or something. As you said, that can, even if it's natural for the song, it can feel tokenistic. Whereas here for Azerbaijan, it's much more like this is something that you could hear at the local restaurant or on the radio station or whatever, and it's just domestic talent. I do really appreciate them trying to build it up because that's for me also the point of Eurovision, that artists from different countries can get that bigger exposure and either can also learn about those other cultures to a degree. I do think it does feel as if the selection committee is just not used to selecting songs yet like this, where they just need to figure out like, okay, how do we pick a song that we want to go to Eurovision? Because it doesn't feel like they quite have the vision yet of we want to do very well, so we pick the most Eurovision ready song, or we really want to do the highest quality regardless. It feels like just sort of still figuring it out.
Yeah, because it's a new team because they had some shakeups. Um, so Eldar Gazimov is still like the creative director, so I think he's sort of half overseeing the process of this, but not being complete control. I would like to see them go back to a national final because I mean, for those of you who are old enough to remember Melissa Shimturo, it was amazing. Um, Horrendous, but also amazing. But I think, like you're saying, they're not really used to selecting songs, and I don't think they're necessarily in a state of being ready for a national final that would be a successful one. I think another couple of years of just having this prioritizing local talent, because you're then also getting a lot more singers who are like, oh, I can write great songs, and they're actually like prioritizing. They're not just having some random Swede. You're going to build up that momentum for the songwriters because you there's always going to be that momentum for the singers because they usually get at least like 100 people applying for that for the musicians. So the fact that they're actually going to get the songwriters as well, it's going to put forward a good like culture in the way they're selecting. Um, Ideally they would do something. I think it was actually you that suggested this idea of like a Festival Cancel style one of getting songwriters. If they did national final, that would be an amazing way for them to go. But yeah, I think another couple of years of national finals of this strategy, because yeah, it's probably not going to go well. Like Run with You is not a winner. It's won our
I don't
hearts.
I don't think it has to win. I don't think that's why it was selected, but I do think Azerbaijan wants to get back into that Eurovision top 10 that they had sort of reserved for like the mid 2010s pretty much.
Mhm. I think after 2023 and 2024, they could very easily have just slipped back into the okay, we'll just get a Swede and someone who can just belt out a song. The fact that they're not doing this and they're still continuing with this strategy. I like it, and I do hope that they continue this and they do have some success. I'm hoping this qualifies. If it does qualify, it just as a final point, where do you think it would end up?
I mean, it's a rock song, and they don't do well in Eurovision in recent years. A few exceptions here and there. So it's also a rock song I like, which is even worse news. If you're a rock song in Eurovision that I like, you're dead on arrival. Forget about it. 19th.
I was also thinking exactly 19th as well. Yeah, I think that's where it's going to end up. Uh, if it qualifies, I don't think it's going to come last in that semi-final. Um, that's going to be Iceland, but that's an entire different video. So, but I think yeah, I think it's saving from that last place that hopefully it can at least scrape through in that 10th place. But yeah, it's an uphill struggle. I think there's going to be some shocks in that semi-final though. Yeah, that's our discussion for Azerbaijan. Thank you so much for joining me today, Angus. We'll be back with some more videos discussing the internal selections and some of the other national finals that I've just concluded as well. Thank you so much for joining me. Stick around for all of our videos as we go into the pre-party and Eurovision scene as well. I am Euan. This has been Angus. Bye.
Bye.